Call this meeting to order. Whereas there is a former council president time 6 p.m. be it resolved this regular meeting of for business of Massey District Community Center and Arena, and that the minutes of the regular meeting of October 13, 2021 be approved. Dale, you move it there, second. Kevin, here. Carried. In regards to the consent agenda there, be it resolved that item G1, G2, and G3 contained in consent agenda be approved, adopted. Anybody got any concerns there tonight? No concern from me? Any more in the second? After? Any on the agenda? All in favor? Carried.
So I circulated to council a report with regards to the winter maintenance services in Webwood. The RFP was prepared with a change in the document to request what contractors would require as a minimum guaranteed number of hours per month. This is as a result of last winter and the very mild, easy snow removal efforts that were required. If we didn't make a change similar to this, we probably wouldn't get any contractors that would be interested in this, as what was paid out to them last year didn't even cover insurance or any other expenses that they required to put out for this project. So the RFP had been circulated to 4 local contractors and we received 1 back. Carlisle Construction submitted the proposal, and the hourly rates submitted are the same as the rates from last year's seasonal contract. So what this contract is providing for is that there is a minimum guaranteed number of 50 hours per month, and then any months that have more actual working hours than the 50, like they'll work, and then once they hit 50, then they'll get compensated for the actual number of hours worked after that. If they only work 35 hours, they're getting paid for 50. It is something that's going to benefit township in getting services to make sure that we have them, as well as being fair to the contractor to know that they're getting an amount that they can afford to provide the service.
Get a fair shake.
Yeah.
Is that what everybody read in there?
Yeah.
Oh, because I thought I read there that they're guaranteed X number of dollars there, plus any hours they work there is over and above.
Over and above, they'll work until, like, if they put 50 in, they're going to get paid for that minimum number of 50.
Okay.
And if they work 60, we're going to pay them 10 hours more than
Yeah,
that.
because it works out to $20,000 plus the.
Yeah.
So they want to be guaranteed 48, 75 a month, whether they work 50 or not.
Yeah, I know.
Which is pretty standard procedure.
I mean, last year was a very odd year when you look back at the previous year even.
Well, we may very well have another year like that.
It's hard to know, right? It's the weather.
Well, that's to secure the contract and contractor.
Well, and they have to secure people to do it, so.
And this, it'll be in tip-top shape as well.
Yep.
Because they'll have the time, if it is mild, they'll be able to do a nice job of everything, so it'll be safe.
Plus it also guarantees they will be available when they need them.
That's right.
Be it resolved that the RFP for winter maintenance services Redwood for 2021-2022 be awarded to Cloud Construction. Move on the second, Linda there and Kevin there. All in favor? Carried.
We have a request for payment number 1 for the Massey Storm Sewer Replacement Project. At the end of the day today, I got an email from the contract administrator indicating that there are some deficiencies in the project as well as the one in Webwood. And she's going to just do a report to let us know what those deficiencies are and work with the contractors to get them done. Nothing's major, it's just things they have to do to finish cleaning up and
And no extra cost on your job?
The one for this culvert project, there was a $3,500 additional cost because they had to remove a manhole that hadn't been captured in the original plan. It wasn't anywhere in any of the mapping that we had had. It was an old manhole and it totally was in the way of what they were doing, had to be replaced. But what cost money for that project was that they had to disconnect the water line because it was going in that area, and then they had to remove it and connect the water line again. So it was just a little bit of extra work. But that all went smoothly.
Good.
Be resolved that the payment number one that be approved in the amount of $273,303.85 to Dennis Stratton Construction Agreement for the Massey Storm Sewer Replacement Government Road Outfall Project. Dale, you move it there?
Yes, please.
I have a second it there. All in favor?
So at the last council meeting, council gave direction to staff to draft a vaccination policy for employees of the municipality. Together, Ed and I have drafted what was circulated to you. This applies to permanent, full-time, permanent, part-time employees and council. It does not apply to contractors, volunteers, and it requires a vaccination.
I saw that, I noticed there was nothing in terms of weekly testing.
Well, there is, if there's medical exemption.
Yes, medical exemption,
Yeah.
religious exemption, but not just, I
Not
don't want
just
to get
because,
vaccine.
No. I mean, that's happening right now.
Yeah, I know.
Like, there's testing being done now for those who aren't vaccinated, so,
Yeah.
a policy to state that wouldn't be any different than what is currently taking place.
Good.
But this, I mean, this is the understanding was that there was a vaccination policy we drafted for staff, for employees, so.
So in other words, if somebody in our employ chooses not to be vaccinated, then they're gonna be on leave.
Right.
As long as that's clear to everybody.
Yes.
And what gets me is the province is out there trotting the fact that come March, no one's gonna need any, no more masks, no more nothing. And it's like, but that doesn't mean I disagree with it. It just throws a lot of skepticism into it.
But it is we are following recommendations from public health.
It's a health and safety policy.
They have recommended that. And even with the last correspondence we got from our insurance company, they said, just keep following protocols and guidelines from the province and your health units.
That's all we can do, we have to rely on professionals, right? There's
Well, and I
professionals
mean,
that-
if our insurance company is,
Yeah,
you don't wanna wind up not insured.
And I also think there that our contractors that are working for us, they're all got their shots already. So I know Bob Manea was in first in line, there he is there.
90% of
Yeah.
everybody has.
They're dealing with the public there and they want to be protected as well. There's,
But this policy is not including that
No,
contractors or
no,
volunteers
but
or not.
I
We
think-
have to make that clear.
yeah.
It's clear in the
Because,
policy.
yes, no, but I'm talking like, you know, because this meeting is recorded and that, somebody's
Yeah.
watching it, we have to make that totally clear.
All of our
What
other,
this policy is about.
now, all of our other personal protective equipment procedures and distancing practices, everything still applies to contractors, volunteers, right?
Yes.
So they have to- yeah. That's what I understood by the copious amount of paper.
Well, you have to cross your T's and dot your
Dot your I's, yeah.
I know that our medical staff will be pleased to see council take this step.
Well,
They
I
have
did-
some concerns with regards to being a medical facility. Where they have
Well,
to,
and I can see that. Any healthcare, shouldn't be any option beside a vaccine, really. You're dealing with sick people. there are places where there are variations there, ESAP, but that's an exception, there's testing going on there, but I'm not completely in agreement with that, but it's what it is.
I just think it's sad that the provincial government dumped it onto all the,
Yeah, well, that's
all us municipalities to make that decision instead of giving us a blanket form that we can follow. I mean, it's nice to make your own rules, but it's also nice that everybody across the province has the same ideas, the same rules.
well, it's elections coming, eh? Time to sit 'em.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Anyway, good job, baby.
yeah,
Staff.
Okay, be it resolved that bylaw 2021-40 being a bylaw to adopt a vaccination policy be read first and second time. Mover and seconder, Pat and Cheryl, all in favor? Carried. You gotta be proactive. Be it resolved that bylaw 2021-40 being a bylaw to adopt a vaccination policy be read a third and final time passed over the council. Movers, Randy and Kevin, all in favor? Carried. Economic development meeting, anybody have any concern? Be it resolved that attached economic development committee meeting report of October the 19th, 2021 be accepted there. Move on to second. Linda there, Patrick, all in favor? Carried. In regards to the flowers there, anybody got any concerns with Mrs. Martin? The next one, Joe, is her, we all do know. Be it resolved that the 2022 flower tender be awarded to Martin Family Farm at the bid price of $1,395 plus applicable taxes. Kevin, you move it there? Dale, second, all in favor? Carried. Can we ever send people over to thank you there for past years there? Yeah, or anything.
Yep. We could.
Yeah, because, yeah, shows that we appreciate what they're doing there.
Okay, so F1, I will follow up with council. The purpose of these three consent applications is to create one new lot per application in the rural zone. The three proposed severances and the retained portion all exceed the minimum zone sizes or standards for lot size. The severed portions are 2 hectares each with 120 meters road frontage, and the retained portion is 15.3 hectares. This property is subject to the Massey drain, so a condition of consent has been added to that. There is no municipal servicing for water supply, and private sewage disposal systems are required. The MTO had to be consulted on this application because the whole of the property is adjacent to a provincial highway. Consultation was conducted, and the MTO provided comments. There's no real conditions, just saying that the MTO does not have any concerns with the proposed severance. Access shall be granted from government road for each of the severed parcels, and any construction within 45 meters of MTO's right-of-way on Highway 17 will require building and land use permits. So those aren't items that can be added as conditions of council, but they are added as notes to approval to the applicant to make them aware that this is required. Okay. This application was circulated in the roundabout on October 5th, as well as to all adjacent landowners within 60 meters. Hydro One was consulted as there is a hydro easement on the subject lands, and they had no concerns with this application either. So the official plan does designate that up to 3 consents may be granted for a lot existing as of the date of the approval of the plan, excluding the retained lot. So therefore, this property has now reached its maximum number of severances. Applications for sensitive land uses within 50 meters of Highway 17 or the main Huron Central Rail Line should be accompanied by a noise feasibility and acoustical study. The retained portion is adjacent to the highway. The severed lands will be further than this 50 meters, and the applicant has indicated a setback of 300 meters from the rail line. With regards to the zoning bylaw, access is for the severed properties are from a year-round publicly maintained road, which would be government road. The setback from Highway 17 or the rail line is determined by a noise or vibration study if such is required by council. Due to the existing residential use of the surrounding properties, council may deem it appropriate to waive this requirement, and it complies with policies under the provincial policy statement.
Anybody have any questions in regards to that one? Okay, be it resolved the consent application file number C-21-12 to C-21-14 is applied for by Robert Holiday on behalf of Powers Transport and Victor Rodriguez be provisionally approved this 27th day of October 2021. The land is subject to application is composed of land in the Township of Salter, Section 26, Parcel 2536. Purpose of these consents is to allow for the creation of one new lot for application in the rural zone. They are hereby provisionally approved with the scheduled condition attached here too. Road allowance, if a survey is required, the road allowance need to be approximately 33 feet from the center of the existing roads in front of the land to be severed, and together with other road allowance that may be on this or existing survey be conveyed to municipality at the applicant's expense. Public road, the road authority requests that the roads on the applicant's lands deemed to be approximately 33 feet from the center of the existing road and approved by the municipality be acknowledged as a public road. No deviation, the official survey, if required, was not deviate substantially from the application. Administration fee, that $100 administration fee per application be paid to the municipality. No arrears, that there are no arrears owing to the municipality by the applicant unless payment is guaranteed by the applicant's solicitor upon closing. That pursuant to Section 65-1 of the Drainage Act, RSO 1990, the applicant is responsible for having the drainage assessment apportioned appropriately where a municipal drain affects the subject lands. Notes of approval that pursuant to Section 3-7-2-4 of the official plan, it shall be acknowledged that the property has reached its maximum number of consent approvals permitted, that the required for noise and vibration feasibility study and an acoustical study be as per Section 3-19-1 of the official plan and Section 4-20-1 of the zoning bylaw be made due to the existing residential uses in the area. MTU advises that access shall be granted from government road for each of the severed parcels. Any construction within 45 meters MTO right of way of Highway 17 will require building and land use permits. Any concern, anybody? Mover and seconder. Dale and Brenda, all in favor? Carry.
Consent file 2115 to 2117 is to create 3 new lots in the residential zone. The area of the proposed lots satisfies consent criteria, which each lot will be approximately 1,250 square meters, which is in excess of the 700 square meter requirement in general residential of the zoning bylaw. review, plan review, OMAPRA, MNR, and Ministry of Culture, and MTO, and Ministry of Northern Development Mines. There are no concerns with any of those agencies or ministry environment. When it comes to water supply, there is municipal servicing. For sewage, it would be private. When it comes to the municipal water, it came to our attention that this may be not as simple of creating 3 lots and connecting to the water supply. We don't need an amendment to our CMA, but the connection would have to be engineered. So this is going to be at a cost to the applicant to have this done. If you read the report, there is quite extensive. It could be quite expensive. I'm not sure if the applicant would want to, because there would be just not only the engineering of the connection, but the excavation, replacing the asphalt, because the water line is on the opposite side of Cameron Street from where these lots are being proposed. They may have to enter into a site plan control agreement and have this registered on title. This would be a legal agreement registered at the registry office, and it would describe the manner in which properties to be developed and maintained after construction, or as a condition of rezoning, marine variance, or severance. So we would like to recommend at this time that we defer the decision till we get clarification from our planning consultant as to what could be included in that agreement. Fair to state that associated costs of development to improve these lots would be the responsibility of the applicant, because it's not something that should come from the general public, from the general taxation. So it's up to council if they want to defer.
And we'll just finish it. And another matter that I'm still waiting to get clarification on from Espanola Regional Hydro is hydro servicing. You see what would be required for their, and they haven't got back to me yet, so.
Because it's also on the opposite side of the road, so whether or not they would go over that, or if they would require it to be under.
A hypothetical question. If an individual goes and buys in 3 lots, and he plans to put, say, a 5-unit or a housing unit, is he going to better do it there, or is hands tied?
Is this
Because
degree-
there's always lots of interest there of people there wanting to build some kind of housing unit.
This proposal is to create 3 separate individual residential lots. So you could, it would not be possible to build one structure across the 3 lots.
You could build a duplex or
On each lot.
on each lot. We allow up to 2 for each one, but not like a 5-plex on each lot, because that would, then it would have to be rezoned to multi-res.
Yeah,
So when they're general res, then they could do a duplex or single residence, but not more than that.
but that's a perfect place there for senior housing. Come into town there.
Well, regardless of what they're being used for, I just want clarification on this. So you're saying that in order to create these 3 lots, they have to be brought up to the municipal standards for water and all that? That's what I'm understanding?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's all the cost of the applicant.
So if this was a rural thing, that wouldn't be necessary for
There's
us?
no municipal water
Okay.
system there.
That's what I want to clarify. Okay.
And so the developer is responsible. They can't just sell the lots and then put the person.
Exactly, like as a good
Okay.
planning practice, we should require all this, so this lots are ready to go. So they're not selling this lot, we dig up the road, they make their connection. Then, 6 months later, if somebody else wants to build, and then you're doing it all over again. So these would be done and ready to go
Yeah.
when they get their certificate.
And I mean, the developer passes the price on to the purchaser.
So just because this was more than what we were thinking, or at least what I was thinking when I first took this application, I was just thinking it's simple, straight hookup, but then him started talking to the engineer and saying, no, this does have to be an engineered connection. We can't just tap into the municipal services and for 3 lots like that.
it's a very good proposal to provide additional residential properties
Yes.
in the town limits.
It works with all our infilling and that for residential use, it's a perfect spot to do that and use up some vacant land that's sitting within the municipal service. It's probably quite attractive to have a municipal service lot. Especially right next to the clinic.
I mean, hopefully the engineers don't come back with an outrageous price.
Well, and they were just I just sent them an email with a quick question. And then I got an email. But basically, yes, looking at our approval from the Ministry of the Environment for our water works permit, we don't need a specific approval from the ministry, that would, much bigger process for that. Because of the wording in our permit, we are allowed to tie into existing with an engineered service, with an engineered addition into the existing service. And then it has to be monitored as it's done. So the engineer has to watch the construction of it to make sure the tie-ins are correct. And then we just have to advise the MOE within 30 days of it being in operation. But it is a cost, and it's the cost of servicing to the property.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna tear up our road to do it.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's asphalt, so you need to have it.
Or you can, bill.
No.
Well, each lot has to have a curb stop.
Well, I realize that there, but you can run under it off the bill.
Or you're saying bring it across by the sidewalk.
Yeah, but that's an engineering time.
Exactly.
And that piece of property, can't make any more lots on that there? Or it's just
After,
a three?
after he does this, 3 does this.
The picture doesn't show it, but is the most westerly lot, is that right at the boundaries of the southwest corner of the property? Okay, because I don't see a boundary. Thank you.
There's supposed to be a road there, isn't there?
It's part of the clinic parking lot.
Okay, I knew there was
But
supposed to be a
it's
road
an
there.
access, yeah, it's not a, on the plan, it looks like it's an access, but it's just part of it.
Well, I remember when we were trying to
Yeah.
work with Mr. Martel about putting a seniors complex there, and I remember all that, so, yeah.
Be it resolved that consent application file number C-21-15 and C-21-17 is applied for by Robert and Stephanie Phillips be deferred pending further review of municipal services requirements. Pat, you move it, Jared, and Kevin will second it, Jared. All in favor? Carried.
The next file we have is a lot addition, for a lot addition in the residential zone. This is fairly simple, there's no, this property is subject to the municipal drains Massey and Dixon drain, so there will be a condition for apportionment. Municipal servicing is for water supply is existing and private sewage disposal, but this is just a lot addition to an existing lot, so there's no connection required. The lot size conforms with the initial plan, and the zoning, there's no concerns with zoning. On this, the remainder of the parcel will continue to exceed the minimum lot area of 700 square meters after the severance is complete. So this basically squares off the one property and attaches to the adjacent lot.
Anybody got any concerns in regards to that? Be it resolved that consent file number C-21-18 is applied for Brad Morrell on behalf of Cary State City provisionally approved this 27th day of October 2021. The land and public application to compose the land in the township of Salter, section 25, plan D 255, unit 14, parcel 14-1, plan 53R 8622, part 5. The purpose of this consent is to allow for lot addition to a part of unit 14, parcel 14-2, plan 53R 7828, part 4, and salt in section 25 is hereby provisionally approved with the schedule of conditions attached here to no deviation, official survey if required must not deviate substantially from the application. Administration fee, then $100 administration fee paid to the municipality. No arrears, if there are no arrears owing to the municipality by the applicant unless payment is guaranteed by the applicant's solicitor upon closing. That pursuant to section 65-1 of the Drainage Act, RSO 1990, the applicant is responsible for having the drainage assessment apportioned appropriately where the municipal grades affect the subject lands. Gail, you move it, second it. Kevin, all in favor? Is anybody mind if I'm up there?
Just wondering about, who did the job to scrape the shoulders on the Valley Road? Well, I know that. There's an awful lot of gravel on the road now.
I didn't see that, but that's,
Well, it's okay at this end,
what, oh,
but I mean, there's spots where, I don't know, so what do? Sweep it into a pile, then we got a bank on the side of the road again. To me, there should have been an angled blade or something.
yeah, I'm not familiar with what you're talking about, because it just done it today.
In the last day, yesterday or the day before.
That was just all the back way, it wasn't done, only half of our back road.
I mean, it's not the end of the world, but now we got gravel on hard surface, we throw in stones on it. Something to talk to Jacques about, maybe.
Yep, I'll mention it.
And the whole trailer situation, are we gonna talk about that again this week?
Well, we got it there because
All we do.
yes,
I mean, as it stands, nobody's allowed to keep a trailer on their property, right?
As a single use
Yes.
structure.
And there's all kinds of them.
I know, and only, since the, I mean, really, only since summertime have building and bylaw enforcement kind of come together to see how they're gonna deal with these things. I know that bylaw enforcement has been visiting a lot of these properties. I know building's been visiting these properties.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of this, it does take time, but I mean, they're on it, they're doing what they can.
Well, I realize.
Yeah,
think
but
it's-
I know what you're saying.
I think we have to come up with something. Like if it means a couple $100 for each trailer on your property, what, you don't think so?
Oh, maybe a couple thousand.
Well, a couple thousand, then they should just go to a service.
And that's what,
yeah, but if the individual's paying $1,000, $2,000 taxes on an empty lot there, he should, if he wants to put two trailers or one trailer there.
well, I mean, I understand and I agree, being
Yeah.
an RV owner, I understand that situation. But for several years and within our official plan, councils have not wanted to have trailers as a main use where you have a neighboring property who have invested in their lands and who have built nice, beautiful homes. I mean, that's just something that's been consistent with councils and in the official plan. I mean, it's council's decision, but we've just been trying to follow through.
There are businesses out there that make their livelihood renting spots for campers.
So the trailer parks.
Yeah.
So,
I-
you know,
I
they have to
remember-
follow regulations, so.
I'm sure some of the places people have built these beautiful new homes, they don't want 2 and 3 RVs parked in the lot next door to them.
Generators, right?
with generators running, with,
And no septic
um,
systems.
outhouses, like, I'm just,
Well, we're gonna have to deal with a whole lot of people then, because there's a whole lot of them out there. And if we wanna uphold that standard and be true to our official plan, then we're gonna have to, read the riot act to a lot of people.
which they have started to do by what I've heard
Yeah, yeah.
from some
Have
of the
feedback.
owners.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I said, well, it's not a campground. I mean, it's different if it's your own property and you're staying there in the summer until you retire and you're gonna build, but it's not meant to house your whole family with your RV trailer. It
And we're
doesn't
in a
matter
lot
whether
of-
it's rural or in town.
In a lot of cases, it's not one trailer. either.
No, it
It's
isn't.
two and
It's
three
multiple
and
trailers.
Like just driving here down Lee Valley Road, I've seen,
And River Road is the same,
yeah.
and a couple of the other roads.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm just, I don't imagine the homeowners that live there year round appreciate, you know, and everybody's friends come to the, you know, the odd time, fine, like have people for the weekend, whatever, but it's really hard for those that live here year round, if they're year round residents, and the neighbor has rented out his lot to a couple of people with trailers or motorhomes or whatever. I'm not one of those.
It's invasive.
Yes,
It's very invasive.
you know, your parents live on the River Road and they've lived there all their life, pretty much. I guess all their life, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to consider that too. And it's not a campground, you know, there's Shoots Park, there's, you know, parks all over.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Now, in terms of having a principal residence and a trailer there, your own personal trailer, there's no issues there. What if somebody comes for the weekend to your house and parks the trailer? You have a principal residence.
And it's gone by the end of the weekend.
Yeah.
It's an intermittent.
And you're not
thing.
gonna let them dump stuff all over your property. That's my big concern.
You have to keep in mind,
Sanitation.
these people have decks built on their places,
Right.
they have attic rooms, they have, you know, a lot
It's
of,
not just a trailer.
Yes,
in the
it's
middle
not
of
just
the
a
field,
trailer.
Like added onto canopy.
In a lot of cases, the lot was bought specifically for that.
Yeah.
In contravention of our plan.
Right.
we have to move forward on that, but we can't, from moving forward from now, this is what we're going to be proactive with.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
And they are working on it.
Yeah, and I have no problem with that whole scenario there. And there was nothing wrong with what Mr. LaPierre did. In many cases, there's no telephone number assigned to the lot, and so what other recourse did he have but to leave his card?
We didn't even have a registered owner.
No,
We had
no,
no idea.
no, and we've had no response since, have we? Of course. I'm guilty, and I'm gonna squawk, but you know.
And like I told someone, our building inspector and our bio officer, they don't go out looking for
No.
people that are breaking the rules. They are busy right now acting on complaints from other residents in the area. So it's not like they want to go out and stir up trouble. They're just doing their job and they're acting on complaints from residents, so that's what they have to do.
So, we don't even have to draft anything with regards to this. You know, our official plan speaks to that,
Right.
so it's just up to our people to enforce it.
Which is going to be pretty hard there, because one of these days there,
Well, we can't tie up our building inspector all the time.
He's only part-time to begin with.
Well, that's right.
And he has to
And
deal
I
with-
mean, let's face it, business is booming in terms
That's
of
right.
buildings, so.
And it's not.
But, I mean, it'll be out there, it'll be out there, and perhaps we should advertise it in a publication that it's against our bylaws to do that.
I think maybe a good avenue also would be in something in the newsletter in their tax bills, because
Yes.
owners get that. They may not, they're from out of the area, they're not gonna see the roundabout,
Yep.
but they'll get that with the tax bill.
Sometimes the tax bill goes just to the facility that's taking care of the taxes.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
but we also send the owners copies of their bills.
Oh, okay.
So they all get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And ignorance is an excuse.
I know that.
Ignorance is bliss, eh?
Ignorance is not an excuse not to know the rules or your own property.
No, we'll do the whole 9 yards there, tax bills around and about, put it on the internet, and we'll spread it around. Nobody will be able to say that they didn't know about it.
Because Manitou now is there
They're
dealing
going
with
to do
it,
the same.
and Espinola is dealing with it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we can't just,
It's because it's gotten so out of hand.
Well,
People
it has.
abused the system.
yeah, and
We
again,
really haven't had anybody to enforce it, and I think that's the issue too. Now that we have the bylaw officer and the building, like that's what it is now. So now they're actually doing what they're supposed to be doing, and people are not liking it because it's not a western town anymore.
They only
bylaw enforcement officer
You
is
know.
gonna wanna raise.
You know, because I've had a lot of negative calls about why are they doing that? Well, they're doing their job.
Yeah,
That's what they're doing, and that's it. So,
well, and we have to know how to frame it to people. It's like, you know what? You want somebody leaving waste in their backyard next door to you? You know, you want somebody having campfires every single night, noise, and we can't address it because it's not an official record.
that is kind of a concern to me,
Well-
because to the campfire and stuff like the smoke and that, and, you know, depending on which way the wind's blowing and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
my neighborhood has campfires every second night. It doesn't bother me, but when it starts becoming a campground affair there, that's.
Dale, when you're driving down the Valley Road there, east of the Joe Ryan, somebody dug a ditch on the south side of the road. Was that the municipality, or was that landowner on our right of way?
No, that was us.
That was yours?
Yeah, we had good positive drainage. It wasn't draining properly in that area, just on the valley by the road.
Yeah, 'cause there's a ditch there.
I read the comments on the Mooney drain there issue, or not the Mooney drain, but
Harold?
The Harold Road.
yes, the Arrow drain. Any more progress on that?
Just what I sent out yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so if there's a problem with Mr. Mooney's field, then it looks like it
Well,
might.
they're gonna continue and do more surveying just to see if there is a problem with the drain.
Okay.
But in all likelihood, it may be possible that
There's
that
another-
field itself needs to be tiled or.
Okay, well, it's important that we find that
Yeah.
out before we
Yeah.
even think about any compensation.
Well, that's why I asked in the email, because I had copied Mr. Mooney on it as well.
Yeah.
And I just asked him, you know, if he wishes for us to proceed with his former email request, to please advise. So I'm kind of leaving that part in his court right now
Sure.
until we get this
Yeah.
all cleaned up.
Where this is.
Yeah.
But when you look at that drain there, there's a foot of water laying in that ditch there. And the reason why we dug it there, because the culvert was 14 inches too high, and the one on the other road, we never even touched it. And then Bobby there was down the river road working there today there, and he said the tile drainage is underwater. So how is the rector gonna rectify the problem there with the tile drainage underwater there and you can't get away? Is the engineer gonna take the grades going down there, and we're gonna have to dig the rest of that drain there to get that water
I
going.
guess the surveying will determine that.
That's what we can hear from the green.
Yeah, and the drain supervisor,
Yeah,
superintendent, just
you can guess all we want, but until he figures it out, that's what he gets the big bucks for.
Yeah, because if you're driving by it there, everybody's saying Bobby didn't do a good job there. Well, it's not Bobby's problem.
Well,
It
now
doesn't
they're all
look good.
according to
But
the
there-
paperwork we got, Bobby did the right job.
Yeah,
Yeah, but there, any individual driving by wouldn't know that, that's the trouble.
well, armchair engineers.
Yeah.
I can guess at stuff too and say, well, that's not right, but I'm not an engineer, I'm not a drain engineer. So we have to rely on professionals to guide us in the right direction, that's all.
Just hopefully there they get rectified there. Anybody got anything else there?
Any luck on the radon monitor?
I'm gonna get that, what model is it that you have? Like, you said something about Amazon's choice, but I don't know what that.
Yeah, you put a little blurb on the information or the advertisement to say that's their choice or it's their recommend.
They just tag it, Dale? There's a little tag in the corner.
Well, I've seen it, like recommended products.
There's usually a ban or a black
Recommended,
ban.
yeah.
The Amazon logo and acceptance.
Thought I wrote it down.
You have too many notes.
Too many pieces of paper.
I'll find it before we leave.
Okay.
So we can-
Yeah.
Carl Sharpman from St. Charles was telling me he got a grant there for a new shovel there. Are we applying for a grant there for a grader there, or is there anything available right now?
Anything that's available, we've applied for. We're still waiting for one for the Webwood, ring property.
We got it under rolling stock there,
Under what?
under rolling stock,
Rolling stock.
rolling stock.
Never heard of that.
Yeah, there's a grant there available there, and you got the funding, total funding there for a new shovel. Now, I would assume under the senior there, he got a grant for sidewalks as well, under that senior, because he's a designated senior.
Oh, yeah.
So the tapped into some funding there somehow there, senior. Which is good to show that some of the
Yeah, I'm curious about that one.
Because the new shovel's over 200,000, and the new grader's over 200 plus,
Yep.
so we can tap into something there. Anybody? Yeah.
Oh, I'm wondering about the new residence hospitality package or whatever we want to call it, the recycle bins. Are people taking advantage of it or?
We just had one in today, actually.
Excellent, okay.
Yeah, a couple this week already.
Thank you very much.
No more correspondence from the Bass Point Road people?
No, I was just telling Councilor Rivers that if they have more distinct information to provide or to bring to the committee, it will. I'm just waiting for them. He
Oh,
told me.
yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was some way to take that bottom corner out there, make it a lot better.
Yeah,
I don't know.
there's a lot.
Anything else, anybody? Be it resolved, the time is 6:48 PM, and this meeting will be adjourned to the next regular meeting of the college. Move on second, Dale and Patrick, all in favor?
Jim, did you get anything from Serena?
Yeah. I mean, I just was curious. I didn't know